You guide me, man.
All right, and we're on. Hello, Chu.
Hello.
Yeah, so this is Chris Chu. I would say you're probably the last. When I say the last, I mean like the only remaining childhood friend that I probably still connect with. And when I say that,
Grim.
it's because I think we met in year 1 of primary school. Or was it year 2?
It's year 3, dude.
Year 3. Okay, fuck.
Properly, I think year 3.
Okay, so okay, yeah. Now I'm curious to see what if you have any recollection, right? But when I tried to think back on my first memory with you, I remembered us looking at a whiteboard. Sorry, not a whiteboard, a blackboard, because schools obviously had blackboards back then. And I don't. Now this part might be like completely, made up, right? But I think we were looking at some words or something because your English was shit.
ESL.
Well, but I wasn't in ESL.
I was in ESL, but go on.
Okay, so I guess let's start from that moment. What can you remember what your first memory of me was?
I do actually, like properly, right? Do you remember where we met? Apart from that blackboard work, do you remember? I remember exactly where.
If it was year 3, was that Mrs. Bunting or Ben?
Mrs. Banting, but you weren't in my class in year 3.
Yeah, I
was in the A class. You were in the B class.
Well, I was in Mrs. Banting's class. So
who
did you have? Yeah.
Maybe you're right. Maybe we didn't meet in year 2 then. I think it was year 2.
Okay.
Anyway, it was what we call non-scripture. Do you remember
that? That's right. This is where the kids go that have no religious affiliation.
The kids going to hell. That's where they go. To non-scripture. What's your what are your listeners like? Like, are they pretty secular or are they religious?
Look, at the end of the day, I speak to a wide cross section of people. I think discourse is important, and it's important to be able to share different perspectives. So, I've had priests on my podcast before.
I heard the minister, the assistant minister.
Father Chris. Yeah. So, he's a really nice guy to talk to, and I think his perspectives are very interesting as well. I guess if you want, we can talk about religion, but let's try and keep it a little bit on track, and then we can sort of break out into whatever you like after that. But
right.
So okay, so what was your, keep going with what you thought your memory was?
So it was non-scripture. I can't remember exactly the first time, but I do recall. So so we had school uniforms, obviously.
Yeah.
And we had school hats. So most of us wore the flap hats, the ones that cover your neck.
Yeah, but I had the baseball style.
You had the baseball one. Not only that, it was like a half-dead baseball one. And you kind of had tape on the plastic bit.
Okay.
You looked pretty poor, like, to be honest. You looked financially
disengaged.
And then I don't it was non-scripture, so you don't really do much during non-scripture. And I think you're probably, honestly, because there weren't many Asian kids around in primary school. It was literally you, me, Kevin Lau, and Ming, if you remember them.
Yeah. Ming Wong Tu Yen.
Ming Wong Tu Yen.
Sorry, and can I digress? I want to add something about Ming Wong Tu Yen. The thing that I remember about this guy Ming Wong Tu Yen is that we in Mrs. Bunting's class, we used to do like the spelling.
Mrs. Banting.
Okay, Mrs. Banting's class. We used to do like the spelling competition where people would throw words out. Were you? Does this ring a bell for you?
I remember.
Right.
Open Slather, was it called?
Open Slather. That was it. Yeah, that's what we called it. Open Slather. And the thing I remembered about Ming Wong Tu Yen was his stupid word, anti-disestablishmentarianism.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Yeah. So that's what that. Anyway, so I did want to pop that in there because I thought you should remember this moment as well, right? So
I do remember.
The concept was good though. I think Mrs. Bunting did a good job. Mrs. Banting did a great job of getting us to actually try and engage with spelling and language, right? But okay, so you thought I was a poor kid in non-scripture. So and there was only 3 other Asians. So you thought you're gonna be friends with the poor guy.
No, I was gonna be friends with the Asian guy who I could talk to about Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee, as stereotypically Asian as it gets.
Yeah.
That's 100%. That's what I remember. And I remember, am I allowed to say this? I mean, obviously, you look great these days, but at one point in your life, you did have more moles on your face.
Yeah, so that's true. I actually did. Yeah, I don't know how they, like, I guess, you know, whether there's sunspots or not or whatever. But on that, like, my mum took me to go get them removed, I think in like year 5 or year 6.
No, it was year 7.
Oh, there
Because
you go.
after the summer of year 7, it came back, and you said to me, "Hey, you notice anything different about me?" And I couldn't tell. Like, and it's like, no, look closer, look closer. I don't remember where it was. We were playing tennis at Crestwood as well. We never do that, but we did that once. And I was like, oh yeah, you do look better. But you know, no slight on people who do have moles and freckles and stuff. But you know, you look great, man. And
well, I think
maybe healthier as well.
Well, so I think in retrospect now, as an older guy, like when you, so as an example, this mark here that's appeared above my eye, that was a mole that was removed. So it's sort of like a catch-22, you know, like maybe when I was younger, like you couldn't see the mole, but now instead it's become like a liver spot or whatever you want to call it, like it's an age mark, right?
You don't have liver spots here. I think you're too young for that, dude.
Mate, we're getting there. We're getting there. All right, let's go back even further, right? So for people that don't know Chris, Chris has been a long time friend of mine. We played basketball together, went to school together, both primary school and high school. But Chris actually migrated across from Hong Kong.
Correct.
And I want to talk a little bit about that, because obviously joining, you know, Crestwood Public School in year 2, that would mean that the first 6, year 1, sorry. So the first 6 years of your life, you obviously spent in Hong Kong. What do you remember about that? Do you remember much about, you know, growing up in Hong Kong for those 6 years, or?
Yeah, hugely. Yeah. I mean, my formative years were definitely in Australia.
Yeah.
But, you know, 0 to 7 is a long time. And I remember loads from it. I think I remember as far back as when I was 2. So I remember all the stuff about schools, and what school was like back then, and how it compares to Australia and stuff. Yeah, lots of stuff. I remember where I lived. Yeah.
Okay, so then did your parents tell you that they were planning to move to Australia?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So how did that conversation go down with you? Yeah.
I think from memory, right? So I think they obviously knew it was going to be hard to uproot a child.
Yeah.
Which is what some people in Hong Kong are doing now. Again, like that's happening again. And I think, as far as I recall, they tried to get the buy-in from me by telling me about, oh, there's, you know, they gave me a stuffed toy first. There was a kangaroo one, and then there was a koala stuffed toy. And I was like, you know, 5 when they first broached the topic, and I was like, oh, this is, you know, you like those kind of things. And like, yeah, you know, if you go to Australia, there's loads of kangaroos, loads of koalas. In my mind, I was thinking, that's not amazing. I'm not too fussed about that kind of stuff. Anyway, so one thing I knew, so it was around the time, and I can talk about this. It was in 1989, I think. That's when the talk started getting serious. Obviously, that was after a specific event known as Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
And so at that time, you know, people were starting to think about, you know, the kind of Hong Kong they wanted to live in, and whether there were lots of things people were imagining in their heads, what could happen, what may not happen. And so that was a big reason why we went at the time. And I remember talking to them about how, oh, you know, that the handover is in 1997. We can wait another 8 years, you know. By then, you know, I was, you know, you're gonna remember, like everybody I knew, everything I knew was in Hong Kong. In Australia, we had no one in Australia, like 0, no cousins, nothing, no friends, nothing.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to go, and at the airport, yeah, I think it just at the moment, back then, when if you took the plane or you were going overseas, a whole village of people would still see you off. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I legit remember crying my head off as a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
And sight.
Yeah. So did you, like, I guess, did you have any preconceptions about what this meant? Like, I guess for a 7-year-old, you probably felt like the world was ending at that point in time, because everything familiar was being taken away, right?
I don't know if I thought my world was ending, because I don't think you have that concept, but I knew that it was a lonely, lonely place.
Yeah.
On top of that, once we got here as well, it was in July and it was winter. And it's
It was
pretty
cold.
cold, and it can be miserable in winter in Australia sometimes when the sun's not out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know what was exactly was going to happen, but I did know once I got here, it was lonely.
Yeah.
But once I hit school, that was good, because school in Australia is so much easier than
Yeah.
Hong Kong back then.
So as a
Like
comparison, was it the hours or was it the level of work?
it was the level of work,
Yeah.
and it was the kind of work you had to do. Like in Hong Kong, legit, I would have 9 pieces of homework as a 1-year-old. My
Yeah.
bag would be full, like packed with textbooks. Got to
As a,
Australia.
that's not, can't be as a 1-year-old. But
No, sorry. As in year one, sorry, in year one.
Year one. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
In year one. And then in Australia, you remember, like you get 1 piece of homework a week, and even if you don't do it, nobody kicks up a fuss or anything.
Yeah. Apart
So
from your
that
parents.
was good. Well, yes. Yeah, so that was good. Yeah.
So I guess, okay, can you describe what you remember of your place in Hong Kong, at that young age? And the reason why I want to talk about that is because, obviously you're living in Hong Kong now. What are some of the differences that you've obviously seen over that period of time, right? Like we're talking 30 years, right? So if you say Hong Kong today versus where you are today, and then I guess when you were young, what was your impressions of Hong Kong as when you were growing up as a child?
I didn't, where we lived in Hong Kong wasn't stereotypically Hong Kong. So we lived out in a place called New Territories, if anyone knows what that is. It's essentially like the Borkum Hills of Sydney. Like it's that far away from the city. It's the suburbs. It's like on the border of Hong Kong and China kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah.
And so back then we were still able to live in a small house. What that was you have in Hong Kong, you have a lot of these little houses where it's 3 stories, 3 equal size stories, and then a family would live on one of those on each one of those stories.
Okay.
So we were on one of them. So that was our first home. And then our second home was actually an individual house in a place which was, funnily enough, like Bella Vista, where I live in Sydney. So it was a complex of lots of different houses, which is very unusual in Hong Kong. And it's it wasn't like it was terribly wealthy place or anything. It was just very affordable where we lived to live like that. Yeah.
Okay. And so, did your parents did they just sell everything to obviously move to Australia, or were they renting that place?
I think, I think they sold it, because I remember them regretting having sold it. I remember talk about that. Yeah, we did sell it.
Yeah. And so, when you arrived in Australia, did you move straight into the Bella Vista place, or did you guys live somewhere else first?
It was Crestwood Drive first. So that was very close to Crestwood Public School.
Yeah.
And then in year 4, 1993, we moved to Bella Vista.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was that a place like? Were you guys the first people to live in that place in Bella Vista, or was that something that
pretty much we were like settlers there? Yeah. So at that point in time, you would still see. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, there was still tons of land which wasn't developed. It was barren.
Yeah, it's not the way it looks now. Like with the whole Norwest development and the metro, like they've been touting that train line for decades, right?
Yeah.
So
I think like when we moved in, I legit saw a kangaroo there. So my parents kept their end of the bargain with that there was kangaroo, like a tiny one. It could have been a hare, I don't know, but I think it was a kangaroo. A little wallaby or whatever.
So, and I guess like from when you think about it as a child, right? Like you've gone from a place that has a very high population density to a place where back then in the northwest of Sydney, it's quite sparse. Like, block sizes were large, houses were quite large, lots of space, I guess the Australian dream from that perspective. Was that a big adjustment for you?
Yes. Because for anyone who's lived in Asia, especially Hong Kong, it's hugely convenient.
Mm.
Like everything is next to you. Everything, like shops, or you know, places like restaurants and stuff, or even like if you want to go out. Not that I do it, but if you want to go to the beach and like go wake surfing, hiking, all that kind of stuff, it's really, really accessible.
Mm.
Whereas when we got to Australia, especially as a child,
everything's so far away.
everything's so far away, and I didn't have a driver's license, obviously. So without a car, there's loads of places you can't get to where we lived. And so that was a big deal. We were, I think, compared to parents these days, we were allowed to sort of roam around on our own at a young age, a lot more than parents are willing to let the kids do now. So you have like neighbors and things like that you you muck around with, but yeah, it was hard. It was hard getting from point A to point B, and that sucked as a kid, coming from loads of shopping centers right next to each other and stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, I actually remember, like, I think if from a driving perspective, it would only take, say, you know, 5 or wouldn't take 10 minutes for me to drive, like for us to get to each other's houses. And I guess the whole not having a car thing as a kid, you know, I remember I had done that walk to your house or home from your house or something like that. Yeah.
No, you're right. To Bella Vista
to Bella Vista. Yeah. So
no, I remember. Yeah, you do go over a fence
down
that you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
You kind of trespass a particular property.
Not real. No. There's different ways to get there, right? So there was you can cut through Crestwood, and then remember Ricky's house? Ricky's house had an alley.
I was going to say Ricky. Yeah. Oh, that's the thing. Okay.
Yeah. So going down that side alley next to where Ricky's house was, and then basically walking all the way down Bella Vista Drive, and then turning left at the big roundabout to get to your place. So you know, I never really used
to my place.
Well, you had the cool stuff, man. You had the laser discs.
The Sega Saturn. X-Men versus Street Fighter.
See, you had all the cool stuff, man. So you know, I did so much walking as a kid, and that, when I think back on it, like, and I guess, you know, I sort of took, you know, my liberties with my parents, and you know, in the sense that, you know, I would just walk anywhere that I wanted to go. You know, I used to run to Castle Towers from my house to go and play Street Fighter with Big Ben on a Sunday, because at the time zone there, you used to have like that 2 hour super session or whatever. Yeah, super session. So you know, Ben and I would go there, and I have to run there on a Sunday morning, and then you know, run back from Castle Towers, and that wasn't, you know, a short walk. But talking about, I guess, languages, right? So obviously when you're in Hong Kong, you're speaking Cantonese. You come to Australia, the main language is obviously English. What was that transition like for you?
It was crap, man. Like, honestly, like when I think people's level of English as a young child here is a lot better these days. But when I went over, I literally only knew stuff like A for apple, B for ball, hello, how are you? I'm fine, thanks. That kind of stuff. Like there was stuff that I kind of knew, but I also didn't know enough to have the courage to say it necessarily. To the extent where I remember in year 1, I really needed to go to the toilet. I think I in my mind, I think it's called the toilet, but I wasn't sure. And then I remember telling her Mrs. Evenden, that was her name, Mrs. Evenden, that I don't know how I motioned something like I point in a certain direction, and she was like, "What is it, Chris? Is it scissors you need? Is it glue?" I was like, "No." And I don't know, one way or another, some kids said he wants to go to the toilet, and so then they took me to the toilet, because they must have doubted my ability to find the toilet as well, given I couldn't speak English.
Well, it's highly likely you probably would have gotten lost. And I was actually talking with someone about this just yesterday, about, you know, first experience with racism, right? Do you remember what your first experience with racism was in Australia?
I do, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me put it sort of to preface it. When I was growing up, I didn't think there was much racism.
Yeah.
like I used to be asked that a lot when I came back to Hong Kong. You know, I was quite young, didn't really know what racism was. Yeah, I think part of it was because I didn't really know what racism was. So I always thought that wasn't very much. But as I grew a little bit older, I realized that was. I don't know if you even believe this, because this is from the most mild, meek kind of guy. Are we allowed to say names here? Oh, let's say it, because I don't hold it against this guy or anything, because I think he's perfectly nice. Do you remember Peter Weenan?
Yeah, Peter Weenan.
Peter Weenan. Don't stay away from the nicknames. Stay away from the nicknames, right? Yeah. Peter Weenan. So we went to the same primary school. He was at Crestwood.
Yeah, he's at Crestwood with us as well. Yeah.
Was at Crestwood as well, and then he went to Volco also.
Yeah.
I remember during lunchtime or something like that. Like there were a few of them where, like, it wasn't like a Cobra Kai Daniel San situation, but it was me, and there was a few of them, and they weren't beating the shit out of me or anything. But I remember specifically Peter Wiener swinging around on the pole and then karate kicking me in the stomach for no reason at all. And that and then sort of, I don't remember exact words, but I do remember it was a situation where I was different as the Chinese kid.
Yeah.
And they were sort of it was an act of exclusion kind of thing.
Okay.
And I always remember that in year one. And let me clarify, I think he's a perfectly nice guy since then. He was like 7 years old. He probably didn't know anything about racism.
Yeah. Look, and that was the funny thing when I was rehashing this story of mine. Mine was in year one as well. It was with a kid named Jason. He had freckles, brown hair, big ears, and you know, I was having a piss in the boys' toilet in the trough, right? And he was there calling me like a Chinaman or a chink or something.
Ching Chong China. That was
Ching Chong Chinaman or something. Yeah, that's right. And so I shoved him into the trough, and he started crying. I'm sorry, like, it sounds horrible. And I don't hold any ill will or harbor any ill will towards the guy. But at the time, you know, I I'm not going to cop that shit. So I shoved him in the trough, and yeah, like that was the first time that I sort of ever realized that there was something, you know, why are they calling me this name? Like I think I might have retorted with like some stupid alliteration, which isn't really alliteration, of like calling him an English idiot.
Yeah, it is alliteration. There's a bit of assonance in there as well, maybe. Yeah.
Right,
but yeah, that was that. And then there was also, while we're on the topic, because I was actually thinking about that today. There was also stuff like, so obviously I used to bring different food in to school, which weren't usually.
Did you bring a thermos?
Yeah, I brought my thermos.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a cold winter and hot food is amazing.
Yeah.
And so not only did so I brought thermos, and then, you know, I bring random. You brought random stuff as well.
Yeah, I brought random stuff.
Yeah, like sticky rice in like wrapped in Glad wrap or some crap like that. So I had there was a day when I had the thermos, I remember, and then can I name another guy? Again, he became a friend. Like legit, we were legit friends even as kids. And I'll tell you what I want to bring his name up in a second. But Reese Burks, do you remember him?
Reese Burks, yeah. Yeah, I remember that name.
RHYS.
RHYS, yeah. Right? Yeah.
He specifically came up to me and pointed to my food in my thermos and said, "Oh, Chris," and it's probably like, "Oh, Chris, this is really yucky." I'm like, "What?" I'm like I barely knew what the word yucky meant, but that's the kind of thing. And anyway, I wanted to bring up Reese because so we're expecting a boy in October. Yeah. Early November. And he's actually going to be called Reese.
Oh, you already picked the name.
I picked the name because of that kid, because I remember him and I've always thought that was a cool name.
Okay. So you you just picked the name just because you thought Reese was a good name, not because he was a good friend or a cool guy.
He was a good friend. Like when I was in year one up to year two, maybe year three as well. He was a good friend. Yeah.
Okay.
But I do remember, that's another race, and I put that quotation marks, racism kind of thing. But you know, kids don't know shit. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about primary school in the sense of like, did you feel any pressure from your parents to be studious, academic? I guess me reflecting in terms of I remember this about us growing up is that you used to get the shits with me because it's like, and whenever your mum would give us a list somewhere, your mum would ask me questions. And then you'd be like, stupid bastard, why do you say these things? Because then she'd give you a hard time about, why aren't you like this or like that or something like that. I remember something like that.
You?
Yeah.
My mum never wanted me to be like you. Shut up.
Go on, you can be honest. I remember you getting upset with me about this at some point.
If my mum did say this, she was probably just trying to make you feel better. No. I've never actually felt pressure, as strange as it may seem, coming from a Chinese family.
Yeah,
I never actually got pressure from my parents. I knew they definitely wanted me to do well academically because that's what they want, but I never felt pressure from them. And I think it's because even I've always done decently at school.
Yeah,
and because I started off doing decently, and because I'm fairly competitive, I've always wanted to do well anyway. Not because I cared about my future or I even knew what a future was. I just wanted to do well because once you do okay, you kind of want to stay on that path.
Yeah.
So they didn't really. Yeah, they honestly they never gave me any pressure.
That's good.
I never felt any pressure from them.
That's even better, right? Like from that perspective. Did
you
ever
get smacked though? That's kidding.
Did you get smacked? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's common in. Really. No, you didn't.
Yeah, no, I definitely did.
Yeah, I think that's the normal, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I was actually just reflecting on. I remember this story about. I got smacked anyway, but I remember this thing about I was telling Ange about my brother, because she was asking. We were talking about language skills and Chinese because. I think up until around year 6, my Chinese was actually okay. Like I was going to Chinese school already. I was doing okay in Chinese school up until probably around year 6 when my parents gave me a bit of a break to obviously, prep for selective schools exams or something like that. And then after that, then I just sort of lost the mojo and I didn't really want to go back to it. But my brother, I think he struggled for a long time from that language perspective, because I think when my parents had him, they were obviously trying to assimilate into, at the time, like whether it was New Zealand or Australian culture. So they were, obviously coaching him a lot in terms of English and how to speak English and things like that. So by the time he started getting into Chinese language lessons, he'd already been exposed to like a very English oriented upbringing. And I remember this one night when my brother was trying to read in Chinese or something like that, read from a book, and my mum was really upset with him, and she just kept hitting him with like a little plastic thing, but like enough to like leave a mark, like it scarred him. And like I think not only did it scar him physically, but like from that perspective, like I think it's probably healed now, but like for many years, it probably also scarred him emotionally from the perspective that he never really went back to Chinese until uni, and he decided to do it for himself. But I guess in thinking about that, like when you were put into ESL, like, was there a motivation for you to really like try and grasp English, or was it just like, do you remember anything about how they sort of coached you or tried to develop you to assist you along the pathway?
Yeah, I remember it well. I think it's good. Like I honestly think ESL.
And I bring this up because I think my daughter is probably going to need to go to ESL, Cadence.
Are you speaking Mandarin to her at home, or she just?
Yeah, we speak Mandarin to our kids. Yeah.
Oh wow, respect, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, like I think that, and she's good enough to like, she understands that there's English and then there's Chinese. But it's challenging now because I want her to be ready for school, but at the same time I don't want her to lose her Chinese speaking ability. So trying to teach her now, because she'll see like a picture of feet and she'll say, oh, it's foots. And I'm like, no, it's 1 foot but 2 feet, and trying to explaining those sorts of concepts to her is obviously quite challenging because we don't have those sort of prepositions in Chinese,
Yeah.
It's what the same word for, whether it's 一家 or 两家, it's the same thing, right?
Whoa, stop flexing, Johnny. All right, okay. So you speak Mandarin. Okay. I think I think English you'll always pick up if you're in that environment. So I think speaking the other language, whatever it is at home to the kids is good. But yeah, ESL was important for me because, like I said, I literally only knew A for apple, B for ball. It was in a situation where, so there was a lady, Mrs. Wheeler, and that was me. And then there was a Belgian kid. His name is Michael Smits. Like he was stereotypical. He looks legit Belgian. You know the little statue in Belgium where is a little boy and he's peeing into the wall or something? Little cherubby boys peeing.
I thought you were gonna talk about what's the guy from the boy from The Simpsons?
Oh, Uta. Yeah, the German. No, not like that. He was like
Make
the little statue.
Make me run, I'm full of chocolate.
Anyway, so it was me, the Belgian kid, Michael Smits, and Mrs. Wheeler, and she would just chat to us about what we did on the weekend and stuff like that. I thought that was very helpful. It was very helpful. I think she was shocked about some of the stuff that I did on the weekend, though. Like once she asked, so we were both there, and then she asked Michael Smits, what'd you do on the weekend? He's like, I don't know, I made apple strudel with my whatever. I was getting really racist. And then she comes to me and like, what did you do on the weekend? And then I said, oh, I went to the movies with my dad. And she said, oh, what did you watch? And then this is exactly how I said it because my English wasn't good. I said, oh, I watched Predator 2 with my dad. And I was 7 at the time. She's like, Predator. Oh, Predator. Oh, shit. He took you to watch Predator 2? And then I was like, I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. My dad, obviously. But years later, I was like, yeah, actually, that's probably not a good idea. But that's what my dad has always done. Like, ratings weren't as big a deal back then.
Big deal, yeah.
I think also in the Asian community, it's not a big deal for some reason.
Well, I had my kids watching UFC like from a young age. Ange gets upset about it, and then I watched all the we have this on our TV anyway. We're using the SBS app, and in the SBS app they've got martial arts movies. So I put on martial arts movies to watch with the kids, and
like which was not the Kurosawa ones, right? Not the really bloody.
No, not the really bloody ones. We're talking like Hong Kong action movies. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
So watching, so I think we watched Tai Chi Zero, Tai Chi Hero, like they're I guess early 2000s movies. But then we watched like some of the older Jackie Chan stuff. We started watching Police Story, but then I thought with all the guns and shooting, I thought, oh, maybe that's probably not the ideal one. So then we watched Meals on Wheels, and that
one's a classic.
Yeah, like just go through some of those. Yeah, like to go through some of those things for them to grow up with. But my kids do get scared though. Like they have to watch it. They will watch it with me, and then my daughter will get scared. Candice will get scared. But then she says she doesn't want to watch it. But then when we get to the end of the movie, I ask her, did she like it? And she'd be like, yeah, I actually liked it. So I don't know. Am I
the same about the UFC? Does she say the same about that when someone gets knocked out?
That one is a bit like, I try not to expose them as much to it now, and whether it's UFC or One Championship, because I know Angie gets a little bit upset, but if there's something on that I need to watch, then I'm gonna watch it, and then if they don't want to watch, then I'll just tell them to go do something else.
I thought about at what age I could let the boy watch UFC together, or rather, at what age he can start watching it. I have to stop watching at a certain age and then restart, like from 0 to 2 or whatever. It's fine. They don't know what's going on. But then later on, you know what? I'm gonna let him watch it. It's real.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, it's it's a part of it's. I think it's just a part of life, right? Like you're going to be exposed to it at some point. I'd rather my kids be exposed to it with me there, as opposed to being exposed to it with their friends and then go, oh, my dad's never let me watch this, right? I think the more you make it a taboo, then the higher the likelihood that they want to keep it a secret from you. Whereas I would prefer, obviously, we can talk about it openly and discuss, whether they think it's right or wrong at some point. Obviously, my kids are too young for that at the present moment. But
what are you discussing right and wrong? Should he have gone for the armbar or the triangle choke there?
That's right.
With
that's
a 7-year-old.
But my kids are savages, man. They wrestle all the time and they're fighting all the time. Like Harley punched me in the face this evening.
You probably shouldn't let him watch it then. He's eating a Hasbullah. He's on Hasbullah on you.
I was like, I was holding him, and then he just went crack in my face. And then I'm like, what did you do? You want to go? All right. So I put him down on the bed and I started tickling him. I said, if you want me to stop, you got to tell me you submit. And he's like, I just kept going. I was just praying he didn't piss his pants because I was tickling him that much. But, we got through it. So, but yeah, my kids are savages. They wrestle all the time. And, I think it's good. Like, I think, it's good for them to be able to have that relationship where they can fight, but then be okay. As long as nobody gets, dramatically injured, and they're not, resorting to, eye pokes and groin strikes, I'm sort of okay with it.
Because those are illegal. We all know that.
Yeah, the illegal strikes per se. But
yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the transition to high school, right? So, we're both fortunate enough to do well in the selective schools exam and get into, the number 2 school in the state.
You got to throw that out as well. The unfortunate thing is that we didn't get into James Roos, which is the number 1 school in the state.
Well, at least we got into the number 2 school, right? And it has its ups and downs, but when we graduated, it was number 2, right? So, we ended up in the same year 7 class together, 7G.
7G.
Right? Yep. And I guess that's because we obviously, went to the same primary school, and they try and group, people from the same schools so that they have some familiarity, and then obviously expose them to other people from other schools at the same time. But, I guess, how would you describe the high school years for you? What would you, when you reflect on it, what do you think about it?
It was, I actually, I was going to say, I liked high school better than university, but that's not exactly true. It was a good time, but it was also the first time. It was probably also the first time in my life that I kind of knew what stress was.
Okay.
Like for the longest time, I mean, as a child, you obviously don't get stressed, and I wasn't stressed about schoolwork and stuff for a long time until I remember it was right before HSC in one of the English exams. That was when I discovered stress. Okay. That was when one night I just couldn't stop thinking about the English exam the next day. And I was like, oh, this is what stress is. But aside from that, it was a good time. It was a time when, I had to, the other thing I remember from very well is that it was a time when I had to, deal quite heavily with acne. That was like, honestly, like, so I'm obviously, for all your listeners at the moment, I'm obviously in the business of skincare and stuff. And I honestly, part of the reason is because emotionally, the acne stuff, it did take a big toll on me personally. And I think the similar kind of stuff happens to other people. And even more now, like with people having Instagram, things like that, seeing all these perfect faces and stuff. It's a big deal. So
you were the greasy kid.
That.
In the face. You were greasy in the face, right? You had good hair.
As opposed to.
But you had good hair. Like, you didn't have greasy hair, right?
No, I had greasy hair as well. If I didn't have a shower in the morning, I had greasy hair.
Really? Okay.
Can we move to the next topic? I'm done. I'm done with this one.
Well, I think that's a good lead-in for you to talk about the skincare stuff. When we get to that, right? But okay. Did your parents give you, like, you weren't forced to do any tutoring or anything, did you?
No, I did do tutoring.
Oh, you did?
I did do tutoring. Yeah, of course. I did initially. I did swatch. Actually, I didn't have tutoring for a number of years until about year 10, I think.
Okay.
That's when I did SWAT shop. But then my parents probably thought SWAT shop wasn't intense enough. And it wasn't challenging enough. I think they thought it was a class situation. How it is, they think, oh, you're in a class, you don't get.
It's not enough. You need to be one-on-one attention.
One-on-one attention. And so in year 11, year 12, I got a maths tutor who was one-on-one. And then, because I particularly sucked at science subjects, chemistry, I also got a chemistry tutor in year 12.
Okay. Yeah, wow. Okay, I thought, you know, you were
What,
one
you
of the
thought I was naturally smart?
yeah, that's what I thought. You know, not like the
Sorry.
rest of, you know, tutoring for Asians is like steroids.
No. A
Everybody's using them.
calculator is like steroids.
Everybody's using them.
No, I'm definitely, and I say it all the time. I said it when I was in high school. Like, I'm definitely not smart. Like, 100% not. Like, I
So then
worked
what do
really
you credit?
hard.
Yeah. So is that what you credit to your success? Is just that you worked really hard at studying?
Worked really hard at studying, and also I think I just knew how to do exams. Like, there's a way to do it. Like, you know, if you ask me whether I absorbed a ton of that knowledge, no. I don't necessarily remember a lot of it, but I wouldn't be able to impart with that knowledge. But I do think that I knew how to do exams, and which is why, I don't know in Australia, but tutoring is a huge industry in Hong Kong. And I think part of the reason why they're so successful is that they get kids results, and they get kids results quick because they don't really care too much about the learning part of it. They care about teaching kids how to do exams.
Yeah, it's gamification. You're trying to play to what they're trying
the odds.
The odds, right? I remember like when we did our English exams, most people would have you know, pre-written essays in their mind about what they're going to write out, just depending on what question is asked.
It's not even just pre-written in your minds. Like, I personally would practice writing it like several times and time
to fit
myself
it into the time limit.
To fit into the time limit. Like, you know, remember at the end of exams when we came out, it wasn't, you know, how did you go? It was like, how many pages did you do? How many pages did you do? That was like the first thing you asked.
It's such a flawed metric though, because everybody's handwriting is a different size, right? You know,
Nobody
really
how many lines you skip.
At the time. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It was an absolute ego thing. How many pages did you write?
Yeah, and that's funny how that was like a metric of how well we thought we did in the exam, is whether we managed to pump out enough pages in the exam.
That's right. That was your term.
Yeah.
How much did you pump last night? Well, it's a good pumpage.
So okay, and so obviously when it came time to trying to work out what you wanted to study in uni, did you already have that in mind, that you wanted to do law? And no?
No.
Okay.
Actually, there's a bit of story with that as well. So my grandpa, my parents weren't too fussed. They just wanted me to do something respectable, which really just meant law or medicine. But my grandpa really wanted a doctor in the family. This sounds as Chinese as it gets, but it's so true. He wanted one of his sons to be doctors already, and because both of them failed that dream, one of them became an engineer, the other became a dentist, which wasn't good enough because the dentist is a fake doctor. He wanted me to be, because I'm the eldest grandson as well, and in Asian families that's supposed to be a big deal. He was trying to really influence me to do medicine, and then in that year when I was doing my HSC, he was we all knew he was sick. Like, he was in his twilight months even, and then, but I didn't really sort of feel the obligation at the time, and I wasn't so close to my grandpa. You know how some kids are like, okay, I'm gonna do it for my grandpa, and that. I'm not. I don't think I'm that kind of person. I'm fairly, I guess you call it selfish, but
at the same time, you've had so much time away from him as well, because he still would have been in Hong Kong, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't, like, I never got the urge to do something for someone else just because they really wanted it. As bad as it sounds, even though his life was ending. But so I fortunately got the marks to do either medicine or law, and I did juggle between the two. And I kind of flipped a coin in the end. Actually, I did literally flip a coin in the end, just because not just because I had no idea. I literally had no idea what I wanted to do afterwards. And then apart from flipping the coin, I also realized, as I think to be a doctor and to be in that field, you definitely need to be genuinely interested in it. There was no way you could get through it without being genuinely interested
Yeah.
and being genuinely interested in helping, having passion and wanting to help people. And truth be told, I didn't have that urge back then anyway to help other people. And I think I was also very, very fearful of, I always thought of this scenario where, you know, if I had to tell someone they only had 3 months to live, I could never do it back then anyway, as an 18-year-old. And so law was the next thing, because if you do law, you're not locked in. You can still do whatever you want. I always say people do law not because they really want to be lawyers, but because they don't know what to do and they got the marks for it. So it's a lot of lost people in the law faculty at UNSW.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's in most law degrees. Funnily enough, like I was doing a Zoom podcast with one of Andrew's friends, Francesca, and she studied law in America, and then now, you know, has a blog and does a YouTube thing for Attorney on a Journey, where she's left law and she's a bit of a life. Cool, she's become a life, but good name, right? But anyway, she
can search it. It's catchy.
Yeah, so she's become a bit of a life coach and also documents, you know, her travels and things like that. And you know, she was the same thing, like, you know, got into law and then realized, hey, this is not what I want to do. You know, even myself, right? I did law as well. I did it at UTS, but why did I do it? Is just because I had enough marks to do it, to add it in. You know, originally I was thinking I was just going to do engineering, and then it was like, oh, you know, I got a good enough mark, I can do engineering and law. So just do engineering and law. Why not? You know, it was the first year that UTS was offering it, so that's why I ended up doing it. And then, you know, when you start to go through it, you've got to make a decision. Is that actually what you want to practice or not? And, you know, from a lifestyle perspective, I think when you start to realize, you know, that it's not, you know, wearing a wig and standing up in court and you know, saying your piece and winning cases, it's lots of reading, copious amounts of reading. So
I didn't really do that much once I started. We had a stack of notes because it's an open book at UNSW anyway.
Yeah, it was open book at UTS as well. So you make all your notes and things like that, and then you just go to your
we didn't even make our own notes. I was just talking about this with someone else the other day. Yeah. So we always got this stack of notes. People were circulating them over email. Yeah. It was always by this person called Valerie Law. She did the most amazing notes. Like, it's better than Spark Notes and Crib Notes.
Okay.
And she did it for a number of subjects, and we always use those.
Okay.
Funnily enough, I ended up meeting her brother when I started working in Hong Kong.
No way.
And
okay.
To me, he's always Valerie Law's brother.
Okay, because that's she was like the limelight in terms of the holy grail.
Dude,
of
she
notes.
Helped so much of so many of us pass. Like, there was no way a bunch of us would have done well if not for that. So Valerie Law, wherever you are.
Chris Chu sends his regards.
Chris Chu and everybody else in the class of 2006.
Well, and you know, when I actually just reflecting upon that, you know, that a lot of people don't know, you know, what they're doing, so they end up in law. I don't think it's just about that, like that in general. I think there's a generalization there, right? Like there's, I was just thinking about age just then, because, you know, age ultra smart, right? 99.95 or whatever, UAI or whatever you want to call it, whatever his mark was. But, you know, I asked him, you know, what I remember having this conversation with him and asking him, you know, why are you studying so hard? Like, what do you want to do? And he goes, I don't know, but I just want to make sure that I got the mark so that I can do anything that I want. You know? But yeah, like, I think it's you sort of get corralled down this pathway in school, throughout your schooling life, that leads you to this point, and then you don't really know what are your real options. You know, you just sort of get told, oh, you can go and study this at uni, and then this is a potential outcome for employment, but you don't really get shown the whole gambit of, you know, what sort of roles are out there. Like, do you remember where did you go for work experience in year 10?
I went to Cinemagic. I remember that really well as well. Do you know what that is?
No.
Cinemagic's at Darling Harbour back in the day. Okay. This is in the year 1999. Before, you know, AR and all this kind of stuff, there used to be a place where people would go in, and you go into essentially a theater. And it's like a theme park ride, but it's in a cinema. And then, you know, it's the capsules moving around, and the thing on screen is like a roller coaster or whatever it is. You'd be going through a mine shaft, you'd be going through flying through the sky or whatever. Anyway, it's one of those things. And I did work experience there.
Okay. And was that
cool?
Did that impact you? That obviously had no impact on what you wanted to do in life.
No. Okay. So I was going through a phase where I thought I really wanted to be in film. I really liked the idea of film production and all that kind of stuff. So anything that brought me closer to some sort of screen or film, I thought was really, really exciting.
Okay.
I remember like not Googling at the time, going through Yellow Pages or whatever the hell it was we did. I looked them up and I called them. And I got that as work experience. And Patrick Jung, do you remember him?
Yeah.
So he obviously couldn't be bothered finding anything. So he literally just tagged along with me to work experience at the same place. Like he just made an extra call in, and so we went there for a week together.
Okay.
Anyway, but no, it had no bearing on what it eventually did. Yeah, no, work experience wasn't for that. I was just ticking a box.
Yeah. No, I think, I think that's most people's ones, right? Like I ended up at Westmead Hospital, and I didn't end up going into medicine. But I funnily enough, that's where I met Sandy, of all people, and Sandy Wu. So.
Okay.
So and then but through that obviously helped Sandy and Age to reconnect as well, because they went to obviously primary school together. But Sandy and I always sort of remember back, because one of the things that was quite impactful for us out of that experience, I think the one thing that I took away from it was that, rightly or wrongly, the people that were in charge of our work experience took us to the morgue, and we got this. Yeah, we actually saw dead bodies, right? And I think most people probably don't get to see that like in that kind of light at such a young age, and it was quite odd because, and this is going to sound horrible, but I think we remember, like Sandy and I reflected on this, and we were talking about how we saw one of the bodies, and it just looked fake, like fake that you could laugh at it, right? And there's nothing funny about it, right? Like it was a dead guy. We saw a few dead bodies. There was a lady that had been smoking in her apartment and then burnt the place down, like an older lady. And like they pulled the tray out, and you see the body, and you look in the plastic bag, and it's the body's burnt, like it's purple, it's charred, and you're just like, okay. And they put it back in the tray, and goes back in the refrigerating thing, and then they open up this big cellar door for us, and they said, oh yeah, this is where we keep the big bodies, because they don't fit in the standard compartments, right? And it was like this big guy, but his arms were stuck in the air like that, because that's like how he died. He's got frozen like that, or something like his body when it went into rigor mortis was stuck like that. And it was just when you look at it, you go like, is he just having a nap in there, or is he's actually gone? And he's gone, right?
This wasn't what I was expecting from this podcast, man.
Oh,
luckily, my dad took me to watch stuff like Predator when I was young, so I'm all geared up for it.
You're desensitized from it as well. But yeah, like it's just like to me that was it didn't. I don't think it really influenced any sort of career direction or anything like that. But I just thought when I think back on it, like it just makes death seem like it's just nothing really. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on from that, because that's quite a morbid topic.
Well, on careers, yeah, I wish I did get more guidance when I was at school. We did have careers class, and I remember Mrs. Savage, that was her name. She used to take us for it. It's not sort of, it wasn't her fault or anything, but it's just the system was built. There's just not much to be gained out of that. Which is actually in Hong Kong at the moment, because I'm in recruitment. Yeah. I'm also like Hong Kong. You understand, Hong Kong education system is not as good as the Australian one. I can say that as a fact in many ways, and so therefore, of course, the public school system, because of the kind of the focus that's put on all that rote learning and doing tons of homework, rather than sort of expanding on your social skills and expanding on your presentation skills and your creative skills. The public school system lacks that a lot. Private schools are more expensive, international schools and all that. Yes, you get more of it, but it's hugely expensive. But more importantly is sort of the careers guidance at some of these public schools. it's really difficult. And some of these public schools are, some of the much poorer kids go to as well. And so if you're around that kind of community and you don't get proper guidance and careers, you're just going to do what your other family members or the other people you hang out with do. And so it becomes a cycle, and you just stay within that cycle when you had perfect opportunities and the potential to do something else, which could take you out of that kind of cycle. So yeah, part of my time, I haven't done that much yet, but I'm supposed to be helping this school do more of that kind of stuff in terms of linking high school kids up with work through work experience placements. And because I always think about this cinemagic thing and stuff, I always try to we're trying to do something which is more meaningful in terms of work experience for some of these kids, basically. Yeah.
It needs to be some structure around it. When I was at running the Holden dealership in Castle Hill, I was doing something similar with a community organization where they were basically taking kids that were in years 8 and 9 with a high likelihood of leaving school early. So they're obviously disengaged kids, right? And basically what this Roots community organization was about was trying to take these kids to different workplaces to see how does school learning correlate to outside work experience and things like that. So when these kids would come in, there'd be a group of maybe 8 or 9 of them, and I'd have to take them around the whole dealership and sort of explain, these are the different roles that happen in a dealership, talking about sales and parts and after sales service, finance and admin. And then, at the end, I'd bring them all into a big boardroom, and, I'd actually give them a little bit of a goodie bag, because it was, I'd give them some of our merchandise, because it's, at the end of the day, it's free advertising. But at the same time, it's there to leave an impact on those kids, to have them try and think about, how that there are career opportunities out there, but then, do they want to give themselves the best opportunity to go for them? So, when I say that, I'd try and reiterate, if they want to go into doing something like, service or parts, you need to have a good understanding of numbers, because if you're selling things, you need to obviously be able to add, subtract, and then, there's part numbers and all this sort of stuff that goes into the system, calculating taxes and all that sort of stuff. So, that would be some of the things that I would, that I enjoyed, talking about with them, to try and give them a different perspective on how to reflect on school.
This is very much, it's very Daniel LaRusso and what's his name? Tommy. Is that his name? The kid?
You love that comparison for me.
Dude, you need to seriously do one of those things already on your Instagram and give out bonsais or whatever. Give bonsais. Don't give goodie bags, give bonsais.
Here's Jenny from MacArthur BMW. And we're slashing the shit out of these prices.
We karate kick the competition. You're not making use of this, man. You totally should.
Okay. Anyway, let's move on. Perhaps it'll be a marketing angle I might take in the future. But let's talk to me about uni, right? Because we went to different unis, right? So you went to UNSW, I went to UTS. What was your uni experience like?
Superior to UTS in every way.
Here we go. I love this, how every single person from UNSW loves to say that their university experience is bound to be better than UTS.
Facts.
Look, I'd love to be able to compare notes with you, but my attendance rate was like 20%.
Oh, there you go. So you didn't even know UTS not a real university. It's a polytech. It's a UTS barely made it.
We had a better basketball court than you, and it was very popular back in the days. The competition was very high.
Yeah, no, that is true. Actually, I did play there.
See,
and
there you go.
Got owned by the Taiwanese kids. What was uni experience like? Is that the question?
Yeah, like when you reflect on that, like did you enjoy uni? What aspects did you enjoy about it?
Yeah, I liked it a lot, because I think that was the first time in my life where I actually had full independence of, this sounds really lame and sad, but full independence of where I went, what I did, what time I left home, what time I went home. Because like back in high school, I wasn't even allowed to go to Para until I was 15.
Yeah.
And I definitely couldn't go to the city until I wasn't even supposed to go to the city when I was in high school. I always had to lie to my parents and say I was taking the bus to Castle Towers.
Yeah.
And then I'd somehow make my way down to the city.
Yeah.
I hope they're not. My parents aren't listeners of yours, right? Because they probably
I'll
still
make sure I
smack
send.
me for it.
I'll send a copy to your mum because I know she loves to get the intel from me.
Anyway, why can't you be more like Johnny? Yeah, right. She said that. So uni was good in that sense. Like I could go wherever I want, do whatever I want. And also an important thing is so, and I don't know if every Chinese kid or every Hong Kong kid has this arc. So when I first went to Australia, I was, one or a couple of Asians amongst many Australian people or Caucasian people, non-Asian people anyway. And then so I really wanted to fit in, obviously. So I really wanted to be white, basically.
Yeah, Aussie. Bogan.
Aussie. Not Bogan, but I want to be Aussie. And then when we went to high school, despite the fact that we had so many Asian people there, we all, I guess most of us saw ourselves as still being, we wanted to be Australian in a big way. Like we still make fun of each other for, all the Asian stuff that we do. Correct? That's a fact.
Yeah.
But then throughout those years, for me anyway, and I think for a lot of people, like you start discovering your Asian, I did anyway, started discovering my Asian roots more and more. I think around the ages of like 16, 17, 18. I started listening to more Asian pop music, watching Asian movies, Jay Chow, and I started sort of styling myself rightly or wrongly in a more Asian way once again.
And look, at that time, Young and Dangerous was the in thing.
It wasn't a big thing for me, but obviously for you guys and all the fights you guys wanted to pick with year 8 or year 9 or whoever those seniors were. And then when I got to uni, like that was full blown because UNSW was full blown, not only Asian place, but a lot more Hong Kong people. Like I had never been around that many Hong Kong people, and except when I was growing up in Hong Kong. It was up until uni, I hadn't been around that many Hong Kong people. And all of a sudden, all these people who, not only were they from Hong Kong, but they were a lot like me in the sense that they grew up in Australia as well. Like we could switch between English and Cantonese whenever wanted to. And there was loads more inside jokes and like stuff about sort of pop culture. You could talk about all that. And that to me was a huge thing. So much so that in my first year of uni, I decided, yeah, I'm definitely coming back to Hong Kong after I graduate. Okay.
Really?
But that actually, I decided that in first year, but then actually by sort of third year, I decided against it. I really want to stay in Australia.
Okay. And so then, so what year did you end up going to Hong Kong?
2007, I came back.
Okay. So then did you work in Australia before you went back to Hong Kong?
Not in any meaningful way. So I did it like a full-on internship with one of the big fours for one summer, and then I worked I worked part-time for a law firm in Australia, but my full-time work I've only ever worked in Hong Kong, I think.
Okay. And so what was part of the decision at that point in time to then go and say, okay, well, I'm just going to go back to Hong Kong?
The money.
Okay.
No, it wasn't. Okay. It wasn't the main thing or the only thing. I never actually planned to come back to Hong Kong even then. Okay. But so it was a summer when, you know how like we're all applying for jobs and things like that. And then one way or another, I got an internship in Hong Kong with a law firm here called Deakins. And then I just thought, I thought it was going to be like the internship with the big four in Australia, where you just muck around for a summer and then you just leave, kind of thing. I did that, and then at the end of it, they offered me a contract to stay as what they call a trainee in Hong Kong. That's when your career really starts. And I wasn't really fussed either. But then I looked at the numbers and I was like, oh well, like at the time, the gap between Hong Kong and Australia, as a graduate anyway, it was really big.
Was like, okay.
It was big. It was like at least 30-40% more.
Wow.
Before including taxes.
Okay.
But that's only as a graduate. It's not a big deal subsequently.
Yeah, because obviously it changes very quickly. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I looked at that and I was like, okay, the numbers are great. And then I also knew that there was no way that I would stay in Australia forever. I knew I had to leave at some point, maybe later on to London was the cool thing back then. And I had thoughts about that, or the US, whatever.
Yeah.
So I thought, why not do it now?
Mm.
Come over to Hong Kong for 2 years, do the contract, and then go back to Australia.
Yeah.
But it's been 14 years and I'm
And you're
still here.
There. Yeah, you got stuck. No, there's nothing wrong with that.
Stuck.
But funnily enough, when you mentioned Deacon's, I also applied for an internship at Deacon's, but in Singapore, back in uni days. And I think this is probably at the end of first year or something like that. I got accepted, and then I was trying to organize. I was checking. Do I need to get a working permit? Blah blah blah. And then I didn't end up doing the internship, because what happened was Deacon's came back to me and they said, "Oh, we've checked with the Ministry of Manpower, which is the Singaporean, visa tribunal board thing," and they're like, "You're a Singaporean citizen. You don't need to get a visa, right?
You need to do service."
Yeah, that's right. So then my dad starts freaking out, right? Because he goes, "If you go back, they're going to then go and conscript you to do national service." Right, because my dad's still a Singaporean national, and so by birth, he had registered me with Singapore as well, and so he started freaking out. So he's like, "Oh, don't work." Right. So then in the end, I ended up just having a summer over in Singapore, not working, so not exercising my right as a Singaporean citizen, because my dad was paranoid that then when I would try and leave, they go, "Oh, you're exercising your right as a Singaporean citizen. It's your duty as a Singaporean citizen to go and do national service." So I never ended up doing it. But when you mentioned the Deacon's thing, it just took that memory for me. So
I know people in Hong Kong who are like that. Like, obviously I deal with candidates who get different jobs. There are a few from Singapore who ask me whether they need to travel for a role to Singapore, and I'm like, no, and they get really nervous about it. Like, apparently they can't even
go back.
Like he's fearful of being transiting in Singapore, being caught on the border or whatever. I think it's a good thing, service.
Yeah, look, in hindsight, yes, you give up, 2 years of your life, but you go through an experience that you probably otherwise would never have gone through. I don't necessarily look at it as a bad thing. For me, though, I guess, the decision, I ended up deciding not to do it, because I looked at it from the perspective of, if for me to take, let's say they didn't go and grab me then and there at the airport when I was going to leave and force me to do the 2 years then.
You think you're that important that would come to the airport and grab you?
I don't think it's about importance. I think it's about,
an example.
Yeah, like it's about towing the line, right? Like it's it's about precedent, right? If you let one person get away with it, how many others can you allow to do the same thing? So I think
benevolent dictatorship.
I think the more likely thing that would have happened would have been, hey, okay, all good, you've worked and blah blah blah, you're a Singaporean citizen. Look, when you finish your degree, you're probably we want you to come back to do national service. That was what was most likely going to happen, because after that incident where I decided not to, and I entered Singapore with my Australian passport, the Singaporean government started sending me letters saying, hey, you're supposed to do your national service before the time you're 21, and so in the end I had to renounce my Singaporean citizenship. So
you don't have it anymore.
No, so I don't have it anymore. But yeah, like that's just what I had to do, and in the end, for me, I chose the career that I chose, and it's been a good career to me. So I can't really, I'm not upset with my choices in reflection. I think it was the right move for me at that point in particular time.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Nuskin, because okay. Are you still doing recruitment now?
I am involved.
So when I say recruiting in law, right? So you're still doing recruitment in law?
Legal recruitment, yeah.
Legal
I'm still, I'm still with the company, yeah.
Okay, and so what I guess this whole Nuskin thing, I think started for you in university as well, right? Because I remember you looking into it back in uni days, because you mentioned it, and I think it was you were using it for your own skin. Is that what happened?
No, I'd heard about it at university.
Okay.
Someone had mentioned it as a business, but like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do back in university. I think I just wanted to pass my exams or whatever, so I didn't care about it back then. I didn't use the products. I was using a product called Proactive back then,
Yes. Yep,
Yeah,
that was
that back
quite
then
popular.
it was Jessica Simpson was the spokesperson for it, and more
Well,
recently it
Beyonce, what
was
didn't Beyonce use it at some point?
I don't know, but I know Justin about 5 years ago it was Justin Bieber who was the
Okay.
spokesperson.
Yeah.
Their spokespeople, they probably didn't use it, just FYI.
Yeah.
Anyway,
All right.
I was using Proactive back then, yeah.
And did that help you?
It did. Like honestly, I thought Proactive was good for a while, but then I also I tell the story as well. I also like it was going well, but then the point where I stopped using it was when I realized my pillow was losing color. Like it looked like it was being bleached, and I asked my mom, I was like, "What's going on? Like, how come this happened?" Because obviously, you know, my mom does all my laundry and stuff like that. This is why we need service. We need conscription service amongst us. Anyway, and it was bleaching, and I realized, oh, because the product had some sort of bleaching material in there. I was putting on my face all the time, so my skin was thinning out from it. Basically, that's what was happening. Yeah.
When you say
But it did.
What do you mean?
Like the skin here, for example, is thinner than you know what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. When you like skincare routines on me, sort of, you know, gets wiped off because I used to my cure for acne back in high school. This was my trick was, and I don't recommend this to anyone. Was using methylated spirits on a cotton pad, and I used to wipe it on my face. And
wait, you mean alcohol?
Yeah, methylated spirits. Yeah.
Okay, how did that go?
You know me. In high school, I was really into martial arts. So everything to me was training, right? So I'd wipe this shit on my face, and like I could feel it burning in my face, my pores like contracting, and they'd be like,
it's good for me. It's good for me.
Yeah, it's good for me. That's right. It's you know, if I can take this shit, I can take anything. You know. So that's basically, you know, how I approached it. But you know, I did then learn in, you know, subsequent years that you can just buy alcohol wipes, and that's probably easier and less caustic on your face. But you know, some may attribute the methylated spirits as to why I have such a nice pale complexion.
No. You have always been pale and plastic.
No,
even in year two.
No. I look back on some of the photos when I was in like, you know, kindy and that, and I was quite dark. But I think what really actually changed it was back then, you know, we don't have the nice monitors that we have now. The monitors were like those cathode ray tubes, the CRT ones. And I used to sit in front of the computer playing games of Age until like, you know, midnight playing StarCraft on modem. And, you know, for how many years did we do that? You know, so as a result of that, you know, and probably not getting enough sunlight, I think the radiation from the CRT tubes gave me that white, honestly, glowing complexion. Yeah,
it is like even blue light now, because we've had research done into it. Like blue light does age you quicker than otherwise, and we're using tons of blue lights, like on our phones, tablets, laptops, etc. But you know, you can't avoid that. That's going to happen. Yeah.
Okay. So how did your whole, and it's not even called Nuskin now, is it? You guys call it something.
It's called Nuskin. We've got a team name, but the brand is still called Nuskin. Yeah. We're not powerful enough to change to influence the board of directors of a listed company to change it.
All right. So how did you foray into that happen?
How did I get into it?
Yeah.
So I don't know, for people to understand, Nuskin is a health and wellness company, and then it works on a network marketing basis. So like I'm basically a brand representative for them. Basically, what was it? It's probably 2013, 14, I can't remember now. Going back a little bit more. So I left law, went up fairly early on. So I'd done it for 3 years. I never hated it, but I just knew I didn't want to be one of the people who've been there for 10, 15 years because I didn't want to live like them. That's all I knew. And I knew I needed an out. And so I went to recruitment, which is what I still do, thinking that it would be my forever thing, because it's you know, it's like running your own business, the money's good, you know, and I genuinely it sounds like it sounds a bit, I always think I sound fake when I say this, but I genuinely like finding the right role for people, and hoping that that's the career that they want. So there is satisfaction in that. But one point or another, I just knew that I can't do this forever. Like, to anyone who's doing sort of commission-driven kind of work, or work where, you know, basically your billings or your performance is reassessed and starts from zero again every year, I just don't think that's a fair way of doing it. Like, you know, for all the sort of brand equity we've built in previous years, why should it start from zero again? So at that time, I knew I wanted to do something else as well. That's when someone, like one of our friends who was still a lawyer, had told us about Nuskin. I didn't know much about network marketing at the time. But what I did understand about it was that the potential for it to grow. I mean, make no mistake, I know that there's plenty of people out there with network marketing saying, you know, it's easy, you know, you just find a few people and then you get, you know, super rich and all that kind of stuff. It's not that. It's as hard
for every
as
person like that, there's the other one's got a pyramid scheme.
Exactly. There's that as well. And there are lots of pyramid schemes out there. That is something. So anyway, I knew that the business model was good. I understood it. I also knew that it was a lot of hard work, but I knew it was worthwhile. But the other important thing is that I knew that I didn't have to be sort of 100% of all my time into it. It could just be one of the things that I did because of the flexibility and everything. And that's what I saw in it. That's what my girlfriend, my wife, that's what she saw in it as well. Because we, I don't know, the best way to describe us is that we like being flexible. And we like doing more than one thing as well. That's not to say that we are career whores, or we believe, you know, or one of those people that does a little bit of everything as well. I think you do need to be focused, but I can't imagine us or anyone just doing that just one thing for their entire life. It's just, I mean, even if you look at, I'm not comparing myself to Elon Musk or Steve Jobs or whatever. Obviously, a lot of people look to them, and you know, they don't do just one thing. They have a number of different things going on. I wanted to say that because I noticed sort of on Instagram, social media these days, you know, there's lots of stuff out there saying, you know, focus on one thing, focus. And yes, I think focus is important, but focusing on one thing it's almost dangerous, I think, when there's, you know, you could have like 2 or 3 things that are really important for you.
It depends on what your interests are, right?
Exactly. And so yes. So we saw a good future in that, and then also it freed us up to do other things as well.
Okay. I want to get into your Nuskin journey of, I guess, you know, how you found, like, what sort of things you did to find success. But I do agree with you from that perspective that, you know, focus is important. From the perspective of, if you want to get good at anything, it's like you need to put that initial investment in, and you will never get to a level that you want to without that initial investment, right? So, you know, if you start a business, you need capital or collateral, whatever you want to call it. You know, your time is that collateral or capital that you need to invest to get good at anything. But once you get to a certain level where you have established a particular level of competency, then you can start to look at other opportunities. Because when I say other opportunities, some of them, sometimes they're related, right? Sometimes they're not related. And I can give you an example from, you know, as you know, I do a whole bunch of different things in my own personal time, from martial arts to martial arts film studies and the podcast, and then I also create content for the dealership that I look after. And when I started doing the content for the dealership, you know, it was just like, you know, I just needed to put something out there, right? So I just started bashing things together using an iPhone and iMovie, and started, you know, editing clips and talking to the camera and practicing from that perspective. And after that initial investment, where I started to realize, hey, it's actually quite easy, and I know how to sort of manipulate things. That's when I started to look at doing film studies from the martial arts perspective. So I do the same thing. I basically just clip up things on my phone. I sit there and then spend some time thinking about, what is the premise, what is the sort of discussion that I want to undertake in doing that sort of study. But the competency that I got was originally from doing it for work. And then I just found something that I could then apply to an interest of mine, which was, how do I get better as a martial artist? How do I understand things more and articulate those things so that if one day I am, moving into teaching or something like that, then the premises that I come up with are very well thought out and very structured and easy to then apply to many different situations. So that's how it sort of came together for me. But I think having that initial focus of saying, oh, I want to learn how to do this, and then investing the time into that, then opened up those other opportunities, right?
Yeah.
I think this, you can say the same thing in terms of when you go through and study a law degree, right? You may not choose to practice law, but the habits that studying law has given you, you can apply to business, to your personal life. Yeah.
Agreed. No, 100%. I think, like, I don't believe in the education system here perfectly. Yeah. No, it's it's not a political thing.
Look, to be honest,
shut up! Stop getting me busted.
No, but I also don't necessarily agree with the education system in Australia either. Like, I think we don't encourage kids to really like. I think it's just a funnel, right? You're trying to apply this one size fits all mentality to the education system. So by your selection in subjects, there's no real scope for you to try and learn the other skills that might be important to whatever career direction that you want to take, right? Like, nothing in school really prepared me to go and be a mechanic when I first, left school and went to uni and started working in that field. Uni didn't even prepare me to be a mechanic. I actually, often make the comment that I, because I've done a few courses at TAFE has actually provided the most hands-on learning out of all the experiences that I had, right? So and perhaps for my style of learning, I enjoyed the hands-on style of teaching and learning. So that's probably why I resonated more with that than I resonated with, the methodology of university education, where it's, you go to your lectures, if you go to your lectures, or you get your notes, and then you go to tutes, and then you do your assignments, and then you do your exam. So
yeah, no, what's that? Yeah, no, I agree. I think, yeah, there's stuff about the education system I don't believe in, but I do, people say, oh, yeah, exams are bad and it stresses kids out, doesn't teach them stuff. But I think it is important, though, because it does, like you said, teach the discipline side of things. And without sort of some semblance of that system, it's hard to teach discipline. And that's super important. Like, I don't want to hold the legal profession out to be all high and mighty and stuff, but there is a difference in people who come out of not just law firms, but places where it's high performance and it's a place where there are strict rules on professionalism. Those places are very different to, say, a local company or a small company where things are all over the place and you can just do whatever you want. Like, I don't think people think sort of letting people do whatever they want is what creativity is all about. But I think creativity can only happen if there are restrictions in place, because there's no need to be creative if there aren't any restrictions. Right. I didn't come up with that concept, by the way. I read it somewhere, but I just think it's very true, I think. Yeah.
I often, when I do coaching with my teams and my staff, I sort of, in the very first session, I always talk to them about what is a business structure, right? And I like giving this example, right? So to me, there are 3 tiers in any business. There is the leadership tier, which is centered around making strategic decisions and business planning decisions. There's a management tier, which is focused on how do we get our results for the month? What are the sort of systems and processes we need to have in play to achieve those results? And then there's the employee tier, which is centered around, what are the tasks that we need to do, right? And each of those 3 tiers, have a different time frame. So as an employee, you're focused on the day. What do I need to do today? As a manager, what do we need to achieve within the month? And then as a leader, what do we need to achieve within the year? And the analogy that I always like to give with this is, let's say that I'm Johnny Yap, the plumber. I've done my plumbing apprenticeship and now I've started my plumbing business. So because I've now just started this plumbing business and I'm a sole owner operator, I'm wearing all three hats. You know, I'm the leader of this business. I'm doing all my management and administration, and then I'm also the employee, you know, carrying out the physical labor, you know, from the plumbing side of things, right? And you know, let's say that I start, you know, building up my brand, and now I find myself in the position where I've got more work than I can physically handle as one individual. So then what do? Well, you know, Johnny App did his apprenticeship with 3 other guys at TAFE. So, you know, they're nice guys and they've become my friends over the years. So now I'm going to start subcontracting out my work to those guys, right? So if I continue to do my own jobs, then I'm still wearing all 3 hats. You know, I'm still the leader of my business. I'm the manager, because now not only am I a manager of myself, I'm managing these 3 other subcontractors that are doing the additional work for myself as well. And then I might get to the point where, you know, I've grown my business enough that I no longer need to do the physical labor itself. So I can now take off 1 hat. I don't need to be the employee anymore. I can just be the leader and the manager. You know, my job is to work on my marketing, work on my on the quoting, the management of the work, handing out the work and divvying that up and doing the administration side of things, right? So, and then if I'm successful in my business and I continue to grow it, I might get to the point where there might be too many subcontractors for me to manage as one person, in which case then I go and hire a manager to now take over that second tier to manage the workload and distribute the work to my subcontractors, as an example. And then, and part of the reason I always try and explain this is because to be good at leadership requires a solid understanding of how the 3 tiers sort of relate to each other. It requires an understanding that, you know, in each of the hats, your focus is actually very, very different. And like for me, when I went through and became a manager and a manager of people, that was something that I did a really shit job of. You know, when I was a manager 10 years ago, it was like I was struggling between being the employee and the manager. So as a result of that, you know, I think there are 3 sort of main management styles, and it comes out of fear, ego, or control, right? And they don't sound like very positive management styles, but I guess to sort of highlight how they sort of operate. You know, if I'm the manager that's fearful, I'm always worried about, you know, somebody coming up to replace me. So, you know, I'm not going to then foster creativity and foster and nurture, you know, the right sort of growth environment, because I'm always paranoid that somebody's going to take my job, right? Then from the ego guy, and this was me, you know, 10 years ago, it was like, I'm here to prove a point, you know, that I'm really good at this, and it's all about the profit and me doing this and me, it's all about me. So everybody's worked for a manager like that in their career. And then the control guy is the guy that's the micromanager, the guy that goes, sends you an email and says, you know, I need you to do this, and then sends you another email and says, I need you to do this. It's like, have you done the other thing yet? And it's like, well, what do you want me to do first, right? So they sound very negative, but once you actually, you know, when you have a good understanding of the 3 layers between leadership, management, and the employee, you know, the only difference is scale, right? So small operation, sole owner operator, I'm wearing all 3 hats. The bigger my business gets, the higher the likelihood that I need to switch to only wearing maybe 2 or maybe 1 of those hats, right? And it doesn't matter in any size organization, you know, even in a company that's got 1,000 employees, right? The only difference is that they've got the separation between the 3 layers is larger. So as a result, they create more management tiers to sort of fill those sorts of gaps in between, right? So that's why you can have like an assistant manager, then a fully fledged manager, then you might have a senior manager, and before you move into like those executive style roles. And I guess,
what
you know,
style are you now?
Well, I'm still the
fearful.
So okay, so here's the thing, right? So I pitched those 3 management styles in the negative limelight of fear, ego, and control. In the very same sense, on the opposite side of the coin, I'm still the guy that's all about ego. But what drives my ego is actually very different now. So it's not about, you know, I need to show how good I am. It's not about how much profit I need to deliver. It's actually about me developing my people, right? So the ego part of me, actually, because I got to the point where I didn't get any fulfillment out of chasing the money and chasing ego, right? The game actually became very hollow to me, and I was like, "What the fuck am I doing this?" Right? So I needed to then sort of reignite my passion for the automotive industry at that point. And where I found it initially was I took a step back. So I stepped out of leadership and went back to management. And then as a manager, as a general sales manager, I was focused on sales. So I became very focused on customers. And what actually gave me the ego hit and the ego satisfaction was how many customers knew who I was. How many customers wanted to deal with me because they liked the service that I provided, right? And then, I changed to, MacArthur BMW a couple of years ago now. I had to go and readjust my hats again, because now I'm back into that executive style position where the most value and benefit that I'm going to be able to bring to the organization is not in how many customers know me and how well I service the customers. Yes, that's always going to be a factor of it, but now it's about actually how well are my staff equipped to service my customers. So where I get my ego drip from now is how good are my people? How well have I developed my people? So I'm driving my satisfaction from somewhere different, but it's still about ego. But I've turned the ego piece into being something that's more beneficial from that perspective, right? So,
and in bonsais, are you handing out to be a thing as well?
I know, but see, bonsais are very Japanese. I work for a German car company. Maybe I have to hand pretzels out to the competition.
True.
Yeah, or to my customers. Yeah, or bratwurst.
We've made so many unwoke references in this podcast. I don't know how you get away with this stuff. Anyways,
it's as long as you're self-deprecating, it's okay. I'm not being exclusive. I'm being inclusive because I'm being racist equally to everybody.
That's my excuse too.
Yeah. So I guess, after hearing me sort of frame it like that, you've built yourself a little mini empire, in this whole Nuskin thing. So talk me through, how did it, what was your initial sort of game plan, and then how did you grow up from there?
It's not okay. Yeah, I think in traditional businesses you can talk a lot about sort of strategy, game plans, or layers and all that kind of stuff. But at Nuskin, and I think in this, and then it's sort of Lewis Sanders as well, which is legal recruitment, which is where I work. Otherwise, it's really transparent if you're not being a good leader or a good manager or whatever. Like there isn't, like we can't even start to talk about sort of models of leadership and all that kind of stuff, because what we do is really so simple. We just all we do is that there is no sort of specific strategy about, okay, we need to develop this person from month 0 to month 6 or whatever. We basically, I'm just trying to put it in a very, very easy way. We basically just do a few basic things, which is we learn it, we teach it, and then we teach them how to teach it. And I think that's the key difference between what we do and also every other business out there. I put it very, very basically. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk about the learning, right? So what did you have to focus on when it came to the learning? Because, okay, let's think about it this way, right? So at the end of the day, Nuskin still sells products, right? So did they provide you with any sort of sales training? And the reason why I asked that is because sales training is something that's very big in the automotive industry, right? So did they give you some sort of sales training to sort of say, okay, this is how we want you to sell the product, this is how we think you should approach it? And then did that style actually resonate with you, or did you have to develop your own style, right?
So the company doesn't actually give specific instructions. What the company does is to make sure we're compliant with certain things, which means they tell us what we can't do. Now, how we do it, training and all that comes within our team itself. So our team determines on what that training is. Yes, when I first started, yes, I did get training. Now that's the bit that we're working on mostly now, because in network marketing, for it to be successful, is that if everyone moves in unison, which means that training needs to be very, very standard each time. It's like sort of any franchise that you have, like a McDonald's franchise or 7-Eleven kind of thing. There's a very, very specific system on how to do it. The added part of what we need to teach is, like I said, not only teach someone else, but then teach them how to teach it as well. So that's what we focus on a lot. And yes, if new products come out, things like that, yes, there's certainly training sessions on that kind of thing. But to sort of make it easier for ourselves, we've tried to make a lot of it standardized and online as well. So it's not previously, when I first started, it was really just person to person all the time. That was extremely time consuming. Now why it's able to move faster is because we've put everything online, so everything is in video format. So luckily, even prior to COVID, we had sort of moved it online like that, and during COVID, certainly a lot more so.
Yeah. Okay, and so you guys then film your own content and do your own, put together your own methodology and how you want it to be trained and delivered. Yeah,
I am the in-house video guy.
Okay.
No,
you got into film after all.
No, certainly. No, we did get a professional to help with our very core training modules and all that kind of stuff. But I was the person managing it, and sort of essentially we work like a startup, so we're rolling our sleeves up all the time. And so when it came to times when we wanted to cut costs, I had to step in to do a lot of that kind of stuff ourselves.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of people obviously look at network marketing with a sort of jaded sort of limelight, right? But can you speak about the sort of opportunities that you think it's afforded you, and why you enjoy it, I guess?
I think not so much an opportunity, but a learning is. Before it, I mean, yes, I did have certain investments, things like that, but I am by no means savvy with money or understand money or understand why you need to invest and things like that. I just kind of did it because everyone else did it. Luckily, I own my home, which is I guess a bit of an investment. Beyond that, I'm not a clever investor. I can't time the market, that kind of stuff. But what Nuskin did do was it did expose me to a lot of different people and a lot of related training where I understood why something like Nuskin is important, whether Nuskin or not, a source of income which isn't completely passive, but which is going to be fairly stable, and it's going to be there technically until the end of time, as long as the company doesn't fold. Now that sounds great to a lot of people, but why that's important isn't necessarily clear for a lot of people. Like a lot of people just think being an employee for the rest of your life is fine, and I think it is fine. But then on top of that, I think you need something else as well, because as a recruiter, I know that there are so many things that can go wrong in the market, in your life, in your other investments, that you need more than one source of income. And that's taught me, and that's a key thing that I've learned here. And I guess and also an opportunity to sort of have that, in its most glorious sense, yes, people do become millionaires and all that kind of stuff, but at its very least, it's a safety net. And I think a lot of people need that. And that safety net, for some people who aren't particularly high income earners, it's a very, very meaningful income on top of, that minimum wage, for example, that they can only earn because of their qualification and things. Nuskin is a place where it doesn't discriminate on that, as long as you're willing to work for it. And that's the kind of thing I've learned from the business. And I guess it's also given us a lot of flexibility in the way we live. Like, for example, the kids due in October, November. Now in Hong Kong, we don't get, tons of maternity and paternity leave by law. So being involved in this business and having that flexibility, that's helped with planning our lives around a milestone event like that, where a lot of time will be taken away from me.
Yeah. Are you shitting yourself yet?
No. Also because it's also helped me get to know a lot of different parents within the business who do think quite differently about family than some other people outside of the circle. I mean, again, there's no right or wrong, but I found that a lot of parents within our circle, they put a lot of emphasis on family time without, at the same time, they do not want their own careers to take a back seat. And have seen them being able to juggle that, and seeing them enjoy that juggle and being able to enjoy the benefits from it. That's important for me, because I came from an industry where, the legal industry,
Culturally, it's very down the one pathway.
Yeah, you have to choose one thing or another, especially if you're a woman. Like, it's still like that. No matter how much you say about equality and all that kind of stuff, if you're a woman, biologically you are disadvantaged in this career, and you have to take a backseat. But not just in Nuskin, I guess with other things as well, there are options where you don't have to give something up. Both things can happen at the same time. And I think what I've learned, and also an opportunity as well, is knowing that there are things out there where you don't have to choose like that, as long as you bother to look.
So, okay, when you think about your most successful people, is there a common trait or something that you think is that makes them successful?
No, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, no, the common trait is simple, and it goes without saying, and that's persistence. And it's really, really cliched, but honestly, that is the only common trait. Not just persistence, sorry. It's your ability to recover from setbacks, because there's a lot of shit that can happen. And like you said, it is still an industry where there are still a lot of misunderstandings about it. And there's a lot of we get lumped in with a lot of other businesses which aren't doing things properly. And so I think persistence, and also your ability to handle yourself emotionally when bad things happen. Because it's not. I was going to say, it's not like, I don't know if for people who are looking into network marketing or have thought about it, or thought about any business for that matter, it never grows like that. It's always like that kind of thing, and those dips can be quite painful sometimes. But if you like what you do, you believe what you do, then that's you just have to go through that.
Yeah. Can you speak about
people?
Are there any mistakes that you've made throughout your time, that you think are worthy of discussion, like that you think it's worthwhile to share?
I think the main mistake I've made is that, and I'm going to offend some network marketers. Network marketing, like I said, it moves fastest when everyone moves in unison. So when everyone believes the same thing, when everyone's operating under the same system, which also leads to a lot of people training their people to believe in everything that's fed, to an extent where it's blindly believed. And initially, when I first started, I sort of bought into that a little bit, which was a huge leap for me, because I'm extremely skeptical. I don't know why I got that tick just then. I'm extremely skeptical, and I don't know why I was able to sort of buy into that blindly believe kind of thing. For the first couple of years, I did, and the results, you do get quick results from it, but it also, I think, whatever comes quickly goes down quickly as well. And so, which is why in the last few years, why there's been a big change, and why sort of we've put more work into the system and everything, is because personally, and also with some of my team members, some of our core team members, we believe that that was the old system, that whole blindly believe, that kind of thing. The new system is having everyone understand things properly, and that the truth is good enough, and have people learn to deal with any faults of the products, to understand it and to admit it, and to deal with customers honestly, and also not to oversell the business, and to understand that I think some people have a fear of talking to people and letting them know that the business is hard, because then other people won't join. But I think it's hugely important, because people are going to quit anyway when they realize it's hard, and they will realize it's hard sooner or later. But there's obviously stuff to be done with that, because it is harder when you're trying to get everyone to question things and to be creative in their own box. But I believe for longevity, that has to be done.
Yeah. Do you think it's easier culturally to have a business like that network marketing style of business in an Asian country versus Australia?
No.
Okay.
To give you an example, right? Our biggest market and the most explosive market at the moment is actually our oldest market and the most Western market. The US has been doing insanely well in the last year, partly because of COVID. And because, so network marketing
So
is
people are just,
Nuskin
because they can order online, right? So
exactly, and you can operate the business online, 100% online.
Yeah.
And so they've been growing extremely well, and that's a very Western Australian-like country. I think where in Asian countries, and why in Asian countries it does well, is because, oh God, I'm going to go down a stereotypical route again.
Yeah.
Asians are just brought up with a sense of discipline and playing by the rules and following rules more so than Western society is. I think I can say that as a fact. That's true. You can see it in our school systems. We're taught the rote learning method much more. We're punished to copy and repeat, to write the same word 1,000 times as punishment.
Yeah.
And by definition, we're very, very good at copying and rote learning and being disciplined. And a big part of this business is about that. You do have to be very disciplined and follow the rules and play as a team, which is why in Japan, they're really, really particularly good as well, because they're very much so about moving as a unit, and they don't think for themselves individually. They think of whatever's good for the team, even though they've got their own bottom line. So, but overall, I think can be done in any country.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting point. Like, I think, we're going through obviously political conversations about vaccinations and things like that in Australia, much like there's battle lines drawn in the US over it as well. I didn't really think about it from that perspective, but yeah, I can see that from a cultural perspective. People in Asian societies are probably much less likely to sort of question those sorts of maneuvers as much as it happens in Western society.
Yeah, if people get locked down here, or you're asked to put your mask on. I mean, because we've been through SARS as well in Hong Kong, we just do it because that's what we're brought up. We follow rules. We like rules, and rules are actually important. And I think don't let anyone tell you that rules are the obstacle to creativity, because rules, number one, are necessary sometimes, and also they're necessary for creativity, if anything, because without rules, there's no creativity.
Oh, yeah, it's a catch-22, right? Because how do you think outside the rules if there are no rules?
Correct.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about
sorry, I don't want to just sort of interrupt too much, but how long is this? I can stick around, but I just wanted to know if you have timelines in mind.
No, normally an episode's around 2 hours. So
oh, is it? Okay.
If you need to go, you just let me know. But the only thing I thought I wanted to touch on as a last sort of idea was the differences that you found, obviously going back to Hong Kong in 2007 versus when you were 7. The place would have obviously changed quite a lot. I know you probably visited and come back in between those periods of time, but from a living perspective, and then obviously from the perspective of, and if you can or can't talk about it, feel free to elect not to speak about it. But like, obviously, there's been a handover. It's now the one China, two systems per se. But there's obviously was a lot of discussion around and protesting. Obviously, that's been conveniently quelled because of COVID. But from a living perspective and from an opportunities perspective, have you noticed much different? Have you, what's your sort of experience with it, having been living there?
First of all, I'm one of those guys that try to avoid the news. So I take as much news in as I need to. But I've never got the TV. I don't even have free-to-air TV at home. So I never switch on the TV and just let the news run.
Yeah.
And I never plow the newspapers and sort of read every single controversial article. Even on social media, I can't control it, but I try not to sort of get clickbait into stuff. And so I think my view of Hong Kong is a little bit different to someone else who might do all that kind of stuff. I feel, and I guess I'm lucky as well in the sense that in Hong Kong, I'm not affluent necessarily, but I'm comfortable enough to not have to worry about certain things. And if I'm not worried about certain things, I don't have the same experience as someone who's maybe lower to middle income, that kind of bracket. So I feel I'm lucky, and therefore I feel like Hong Kong hasn't really changed that much from an opportunities, career, and living point of view. However, I do know as a fact that housing is a problem in Hong Kong, especially if you're low or middle income earner. The kind of space that you have to live in has gotten worse than previously when I was little. I think that's a fact.
Okay.
Now, if we're talking about sort of freedom of speech and things, yeah, I'm allowed to say this. I think it has been restricted. That's a fact as well, because there are certain laws in place where if we say certain things, it can theoretically get you into trouble, but in reality, you don't, because those particular laws aren't aimed at non-consequential people like myself. But I know other people could feel differently about it. And the reality is just whatever you feel from it. But I feel overall, it hasn't really changed that much. It's a fact, I do hear more Mandarin around these days than when I was a child, where it was almost exclusively Cantonese. That is true. Aside from that, yeah, and I guess I do. It is a bit shameful that I don't have enough of an understanding about other demographics as I should. I am looking into it, but just from my point of view, it hasn't changed that much, I feel.
Yeah. And then from a because obviously Hong Kong was like a gateway hub to the east from Western perspective, in terms of the amount of multinationals that have headquarters there and things like that. Like, has there been much pullout in terms of or disengagement from those multinationals in Hong Kong?
I haven't really noticed it that much of the multinationals. I know a lot of tech companies want to be headquartered in Singapore as opposed to Hong Kong, but I really didn't think that was a result of any political reasons. I just think Singapore has a better ecosystem for those kind of businesses. So I think large businesses, there hasn't really been that much pullout necessarily. Now, if we're talking about individual citizens, yes, there has been more talk of people immigrating, like my family did in the 90s. But again, on that, even though some of the people that we know have made a move, most are just talking about it rather than actually making the move. Or the ones that will do it always plan to do it anyway. So I don't feel that there was a response to anything that's happening at the moment. What I have noticed, and again, because I'm in recruitment, so I'm sort of more aware of people's movements because of jobs and all that. People who are earning pretty good money in Hong Kong are more reluctant to leave Hong Kong for a place like Australia or whatever, where they know their money and their careers are going to take a hit. Because let's face it, and I say this all the time, and I always say this to people who are thinking about immigrating, because they need to think about this. Overseas, you no longer have home ground advantage. That's a fact. No matter, even people like yourself and me, we speak like people in Australia over the phone. People can't tell the difference. We could have fairly similar interests to people who are naturally from Australia as well. But when it comes to certain positions and when it comes to certain things, there is a bit of a ceiling there still. Someone in high school used to call it the bamboo ceiling.
Bamboo ceiling, yeah. Look, I have a slightly different take on that. Like, I think, yes, I can see it, but I think I've been very fortunate in my industry to obviously work my way to a senior level, where I don't necessarily notice it that much. When I say I don't notice it, like, where I would notice it, it would be if I looked at my peers, like people at my level running other dealerships and things like that. Well, what nationality are they? Okay, yes, there is probably a very small percentage that would be of Asian heritage, right? But then I look at it from the perspective of if it was really that exclusive, then I wouldn't have made it, right? Now I could just be the anomaly, right? And yeah, okay, that's probably highly likely as well. But if I knew somebody that, you know, had put in the same amount of years and they had the same amount of experience that I had, I would be quite shocked if they didn't make it to the level that I'm at, right? So if I think about, you know, me in the automotive profession, like I worked my fucking ass off. Like I was an apprentice, I became a mechanic. You know, I was fortunate that I had a boss who got me a foot in the door at Toyota Motor Corporation, and I got to work at a manufacturer like Toyota, you know, number one automotive brand in the world, for a long period of time, and then, you know, use that as my springboard through networking to then go and get into, you know, public listed company and spent my time there. And so, like, if somebody else had done the same pathway as me, I would think that there would be no other alternative other than to have found success like I found success, right? So I think the equality of opportunity is there, right? And I don't agree in equality of outcome. I think that's essentially communist. But you know, yeah, but you know, the equality of opportunity was there. It's just how hard are you actually prepared to work for it, right? And so, you know, for me, and you know, you've known me for a long time. Like I try not to sacrifice on anything. Like I try and make the most of everything that gets presented to me. So I find it, you know, I don't really.
So you need to. I mean, yes, it's there. It's certainly there. But what I mean is, you have to work harder for it than if you were to stick around, and the chances are against you a little bit. I mean, that's why sort of in sports you've got home court, away court, because things are harder in an away game. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. And I always think, you know, and you know, you can't put it down to discrimination or anything. It's like, okay, let's say you know, you're hiring two people.
Yeah,
they're both exactly the same in every respect.
Yeah,
but one of the people you just naturally get along with more. You've got more in common. You're going to pick that person, and it's usually the case that person is of the same kind of upbringing, of the same kind of background, rather than someone who's come from overseas. And also, I also like even in Hong Kong still, like, you know, in recruitment, we get a lot of, you know, we look at a lot of roles, and some of the senior roles, some clients specifically, not in these words, but you know, they're after an expat, like as in they're after a white person.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff happens if it's happening in Hong Kong, where you have the home ground advantage, an Asian person.
Yeah.
Overseas, it is still 100% happening. And I don't think it's wrong. I think people should pick the people that they get along with. And yes, it's on ability, but once that's all equal and everything, you got to pick the person that you like more. And if it so happens that, you know, that's a person that looks more similar to you, then so be it.
Yeah, well, I can't really.
Because I know I'm going to do that as well.
Like, you know, I got quite a few Asian guys working in my business, but you know, it's more consequence of, you know, like I look at language skills, I look at ability, I look at all those sorts of things. And you know, depending on the brand that you represent, sometimes you need that diversity, right? Like I don't have a team full of Asians, but I do have Asians in my business. To have that diversity, be able to, you know, speak culturally to the different groups, because sometimes people like to talk to people who can speak the same language.
Yeah, agree.
So, you know, like, I just find, I think that's an interesting point.
So back to your point though, but about the sort of people leaving Hong Kong. So I was going to say, so yeah, I would say sort of people sort of, if they're on quite high incomes, they you know, quite like their careers and everything, you got to think twice. You know, you just got to set your expectations about what's going to be happening overseas. So right now, it's a lot of people who have left they feel that from a financial perspective, from a careers perspective, it's going to be fairly similar whether they're here or whether they're overseas. And a lot of the time, it's people who run their own businesses, when they have their own say, and they're not really at the whim of other people too much. Or it's people that feel that, you know, they've got a really bad hand over here anyway, so why not take a punt and go overseas?
And try it. Yeah, that's fair enough. I guess last little sort of thing that I thought we should touch on, just let's talk a little bit about COVID. What's been the sort of COVID impact for you guys over there?
We have to wear a mask everywhere.
Yeah, same thing here. Yeah.
Can't booking tables for restaurants has been more difficult because the capacity is limited.
Okay.
But
do they have the double vax rule like they're trying to roll out here, where you need to be double vaccinated?
yeah, no, everyone can go wherever they want, whether they're vaxxed or not. But there are certain restaurants where if all the staff have been vaccinated twice, then they get to open up for longer, and then they can take more people in. The tables can sit more people. There's rules like that. But for the most part, we're fairly lucky in that we haven't really. I don't think we've had any lockdowns. Like there's never been a period where we've been told we can't leave home except for certain essentials. Like not for a single day has it happened over here, I think.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting, because we've been in it since probably around, I think the start was sort of kicked off around middle of July here, and we're still in a lockdown.
Good old Gladys, I hear.
Yeah, well, and the way that they're touting it is basically, they're chasing to get the vaccination rate up before we can open up. But, unfortunately, vaccination isn't the be all and end all. Like, I think, when you look at other countries like Singapore, and Israel, who have high vaccination rates, like it's still going to be transmitting. I think you need a multifaceted approach. Do they do any like rapid testing over there, or what do they, do you have to get tested or anything if you want to go out and eat?
No, like as a normal civilian, you don't really have to do that much. There are certain things, like for example, some businesses like gyms, for example, they made to say, oh, our coaches get tested every day, that kind of thing. And I'm guessing their coaches are getting tested every day.
Okay,
take the word for
it.
But as pedestrians, as normal civilians, there's not that much, like there's no mandatory testing and things like that. The biggest, the most annoying thing for people in Hong Kong is that the quarantine to come back into Hong Kong if you leave is 21 days, and it's hotel quarantine.
And you
it prevents you got to pay for that. So it essentially deters everyone from taking any holidays at the moment. But some people have taken holidays. I'm quite surprised, actually.
Well, if you can afford it, then it's probably not a bad thing. Okay, interesting. Well,
I hope it's over for everyone soon, but
look,
it sounded really stupid me saying that just now, because it's not going to be over for anyone too soon.
That's right.
I sound so amateur.
At the end of the day, like these coronaviruses have been around for a very long time, and they'll continue to be around for a very long time. I think the unfortunate thing with this one is that it seems to be mutating at a faster rate, and the media has everybody very, very concerned, which is also doesn't bode well when people are in hysterics about it. But look, I just find it interesting to understand what the different countries' policies are.
I basically think Hong Kong's actually one of the best places to be during COVID.
Relatively open. You still eat out.
Relatively open, and you're not getting sick. Like in the US, you're relatively open as well, but you got a high chance of getting it if you're going out.
Well, on that note, like through your Nuskin stuff, are you on any supplements at the present moment, trying to keep your immune system high, etc.?
So it has helped. It sounds awful, but it has helped the business in terms of products. Because people are more aware of their health and things like that. People who have been taking supplements would, maybe try even more things. So yes, it has. And the other thing it's helped is because people have had to stay home more, and so they can't go out for beauty treatments and all that kind of stuff. So people have taken on more sort of home beauty devices and things. But let it be known that it's not the wave we want to be riding on. We would much rather things be back to normal.
Of course.
But yes, it's one of those funny businesses.
All right. Well, Chu, I've taken up plenty of your time. Unless you got anything you want to ask me, we can.
I didn't know it was going to be 2 hours, man. I'm starving. Far out, dude.
It's gonna make you work, brother. Huh? You've known me for this long. I told you everything I do is extreme.
That is very, very true. I did see your dental floss thing, by the way. I don't want to talk about it. It's gross, man.
It's gone.
Don't show me.
It's gone.
Why'd you even? That's crazy, you idiot. And the look on your face when you did it as well, I knew exactly what you were feeling. That kind of pain. That sort of slight grimace, like kind of disappointed at yourself, but then kind of trying to look at it like it's okay. Oh my god!
It was a what have I done? That was the exact look on my face. Anyway, I'll let you go. You can go eat. Hang on.
Say hi to Ange. Say hi to the kids who I've never met. Oh, I've met one of them. But then good health and all that.